Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Traffic Trade Group, and this is your market recap for Monday. What is today's date? Today is the 8th, July 8th. So we are moving through July. We know that July is a very seasonally strong month. And, if you look at the gains so far, it is kind of living up to the hype. We've seen this now a couple times, where the seasonality is proving to be pretty accurate. It's not been every month this year where the seasonality has been perfect, but I think more often than not, and in election years, it does help to know where there is strong seasonality, and then just trying to be on the right side of the market. So, risk disclaimer in front of you: everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Please make sure that you read the full risk disclaimer there. But yeah, I mean, if you look at where we are, and we're just like a week and a half. We obviously, last week was a holiday shortened week, but the Qs are chugging along. A little bit of a digestion day for the Qs today, which still tacked on 20 basis points, but month to date, you're looking at plus 3.8%. And again, there's a lot of difference, obviously, with what's been going on, depending on what index you're looking at. The S&P is also doing quite fine, up 2%, and small caps, I believe, are down just a touch, even though they outperformed a little bit. So interesting when you look at some of the other numbers so far this month. Look at this guy, the ARK Innovation ETF. So again, it just kind of tells you too that there's a little bit more participation in some of the growth areas. That's kind of what I've been looking for a little bit over the last week, is just some kind of reversion to, I not necessarily looking for them, but they've kind of just looked like better setups when you go through charts and you looked at what AMD was signaling towards the end of last week, and what Intel actually looked like. And those are not the semis that I usually are looking for trades in, but they did provide some good setup. So if you think about those two names, AMD, and again, I have nothing against AMD, it just hasn't been a very strong performer versus the overall group this last year. But if you think about those names that have been kind of playing catch up, well, it's kind of what's been going on a little bit with the ARK Innovation ETF too, which again is a massive underperformer. I mean, I'm not going to get into this topic of how they select their stocks and so on and so forth, but it's very odd to see the Qs up 21% and a fund that's supposed to be investing in innovation is down 12.4%. Again, it kind of shows you a little bit about how poorly managed it is. Again, I'm not trying to be come out with anything else than just tell you about the performance and so on and so forth. Growth is also up so far 3.6%, and again, you can kind of look at the disparity that's happening in growth versus value, both in the large caps, which again is up 3.6%, in the small caps. So there's not huge movement to the upside for small cap growth, but it is outperforming value pretty decently. So let's talk a little bit about some of these indices. So first of all, the Qs, right? Look at what's going on here. I would be cognizant of, we are back into pretty deep overbought territory with the Qs, and at this point, like I always try to think about things a bit rationally and have some perspective, but up 3.8%, in just a few trading days so far this month is pretty impressive. I do think that we're running into some of these earnings reports that we're going to have Netflix, and what I think that's like just over a week away. Obviously, we're going to have some other earnings reports. The financials always started off, but I think a lot of these names are going to just run into their earnings reports, and we don't know what kind of earnings they're going to bring out, but I think it will be somewhat similar to what we saw last quarter, where there was a couple names. If you remember from last quarter, it was Meta, who didn't have a good quarter and really got knocked down, and pretty interesting that it's recouped all of those. It took a quarter, but it's recouped all of those losses. And then you're going to have, I think that you're going to continue to have outperformers, and One of which I think surprised people was Amazon. And Amazon's doing quite well, especially since it kind of broke out towards the end of July and has been running quite nicely. But at this point, right, to me, trading is always it's a little bit about probabilities and risk to reward, and this is a bit extended. And again, if you have any uh, have any knowledge about how RSI works, like so that's the bottom study, right? It doesn't matter so much when we're talking about an individual name, because an individual name, whatever stock it is, can stay overbought for weeks, months. And you actually want that to happen. However, when the indices get overbought, there's usually some type of a little movement back, and and I think if you go back to where we were, towards the end of excuse me, towards the middle of June, right? We did have a little bit, it was very short lived, but we were dealing with an RSI that was an 81, and there will be profit taking, in most scenarios, right? Again, there's never 100% of things. There's never 100% certainty, but that at some point there's gonna be some profit taking, and I think at some point we're gonna get that too up here, and probably a move back to either the 5-day moving average or the 20-day moving average. But that's the only thing that I could really complain about, right? I mean, and that's not bad. That's that's not the worst. That's not the worst thing in the world to have overbought markets, right? And to be, seeing that, a lot of trading opportunities. So again, don't mistake what I'm saying is like, oh, he's complaining. I'm just saying like, hey, this is where we've been, and this is where we are now. It's been a very strong market for tech and for consumer discretionary and a couple other areas. Here's IWM, by the way. Notice that this got stuffed today right at the top of value, 203.27. Still gained for the day, but you could see that again, like the way that I thought was a good way to describe IWM is it's been more of a scalping type market, right? Because this is the only trend that I see in my screen is sideways, right? And the 200-day moving average is here, but it's pretty good. It is pretty good, in terms of fading things, right? When you think it's going to break out, you fade it. When you think it's going to break down, you fade it. Like here, it got very close to the virgin point of control, but that's the story. And I think people are starting to kind of think about this a little bit more because think about small caps, because when we start to look ahead to what Fed fund futures are pricing. So again, like I love how people make predictions, and the predictions are basically what Fed fund futures are telling them. So it's not really a prediction, but I know various brokers do, like big brokers do this too. They're like, yeah, we think that the Fed's going to cut in September. Okay, so you're just going to basically go out on a limb and tell me what Fed fund futures are pricing, right? Because it's pretty simple to do this. But yes, if you look for the end of the month Fed meeting, for the end of July, it's less than 10% chance. And I think really what you're looking at is a possible setup meeting. As I talked about in the pre-market commentary for Tribeca Trade Group members this morning at 8:30, I said that the Fed doesn't really the Fed is not trying to surprise the market, right? They very much like to telegraph what they're thinking and what's going to happen. So I think for this, just as the market is pricing, right? This is not making some major prediction. This is pretty like, this is pretty streamlined, thinking here, but they're probably going to come in and set this up saying, hey, we have a good chance that we're going to cut interest rates in September. And again, I don't think, we're going to have more information that comes out. We're going to have the CPI this week, right? And we're going to have so that's Thursday, and then Friday we're going to get the PPI. But we're getting closer. The inflation has been coming down. So I think that that they're getting close to doing that, and they want to get probably one token cut in. Now, again, by the way, is this a big deal to be cutting interest rates by 25 basis points or raising interest rates by 25 basis points? No, it's not. So, I'm going to move on from this, but let people make these stupid predictions. But it's 25 basis points because right now we're sitting at the implied rate right now, and you could see is 5.3 or the target rate is 5.5. So 25 basis points is not going to make that much of a difference, but I get it because it may start the process of beginning to do more of them and coming, maybe doing a little bit more in the future and getting the rates down so that they're not so high. So, that is the one thing that I would say about that. But 25 basis points should not really affect the market that much, up or down. Right, because we're already at 5.3. Now, if we were at like a half a like if it's much different when you look at the percentage, the marginal change, right? When you're at 0 and you move to 25 basis points, that's a bigger deal, right? Because you're at 0. But here we're at 5.5% or 5.3, whatever it is. So in any event, I think that's what the market's setting up. So if we have sustained movement in interest rates, there's an interesting like argument that's going on about whether it's just the interest rates that's driving the small caps, or if it's the health of the economy. And I think it also helps to look at, if I can bring this up here, which it's not allowing me to. So give me 1 second. There we go. If you look at what's in the small caps, right? Because people they make these conclusions and they're not really thinking about what stocks are in here. So you've got banks are actually, so financials are actually the biggest component, right? And that's mainly regional, that's regional banks because this is small caps. So, that would be one of the drivers. So, you can kind of look at the regional banking ETF and look at how close it is to, it should not be a surprise that the KRE is very, very similar. So you're kind of making a call. If you're going large small caps, you're thinking that basically, and again, they're not 50% of the IWM, but they're 10% and the largest weight, that you probably want to be bullish regional banks. If you're not bullish regional banks, then maybe you don't think so hard about going long the small caps. Also biotech, right? We can kind of look at this as well, right? It's kind of the same thing. It's pretty sideways, a pretty frustrating chart for the last couple months because biotechs haven't gone anywhere. Now, I do like this chart over, if I had to say which one do you like better, out of those 3 charts, IWM, KRE, and XBI, I like the XBI, right? It's been flirting with breaking higher now for the last month. So I think it is a must watch. All right, so on and so forth. Let's get back to today's price action, because what I'm finding very interesting, again, is what's this battle that's going on, this battle that's been going on between inside tech. So what do I mean by this? Well, SMH was up big again. It was up at 1.2% today, finished up 1.6%. Kind of almost looks like the Q's chart. Very, very strong. And then look at what IGV did today, which IGV, software has been in a really nice run, and it's kind of makes sense to kind of look at this. It's just an inside day for even though software really underperformed today, there's no change in trend, right? But I think what's been interesting is when I look at it this way, when I look at the semis over software, and obviously like for the majority of this year, the semis have been outperforming software, right? Until we got to this really extended, area in here. And all of a sudden, software, which is in the denominator here, really started to pick up, right? And of course, we could look at it the other way around if you want to put software in the numerator. But software really outperformed there, and the semis took a break, right? And now, one of the things that I said about a week ago is I was like, I think these semis get bought, and sure enough, like if you go one by one through the semis, they have been very strong. So I'm going to do that really quickly. I'll start with this big guy. You may have heard of it. It's called NVDA. Notice that this been moving in the right direction, but again, like it hasn't had the most momentum as some of the other semi names have had. And again, I think that makes sense because it had such a big run that it is due for some digestion. Also, you can note here virgin point of control takeout. Why do I note these things, the virgin point of control takeouts? Because it's a lot of times where overhead supply lives, and I don't want to be buying when I know that there's going to be a battle between buyers and sellers that's taking place. So Right. So I would rather kind of understand that there's going to be a battle there between buyers and sellers, and that's not a place that I really want to get super involved. Which takes me to the last, AMD, which was a stock that I put on. I didn't know if it was going to be just a day trade on Friday, and I did take profits in it. So I don't even have it on my position sheet because I took several profit targets, and I said I'm going to try to keep the last piece on till this upsize to this 180 level, right? So and again, so here's the thing: when you look at AMD, and again, I'm not trying to um, say anything other than what the current relationship has been. This is AMD over SMH. Notice that this has been down for since the better part of March, right, all the way down to just recently, right? AMD has been a massive underperformer, right, versus the ETF. So that means, like for me, and again, everybody's different. That means, hey, I'm in a trade, but it's just going to be a trade because I don't know if AMD has enough power or if they're doing something fundamentally that's going to reverse that trend. So right now, it's kind of playing a little bit of a catch up because it has not participated at all since, look at it, since March. It's been a massive underperformer. And again, I just showed you a chart of SMH or AMD over SMH. But if you don't believe me, put your eyes on AMD here and notice what it's been doing since March, or even if you don't want to cherry pick that top in March, you could say April, right? It hasn't gone anywhere. Now look at the difference between April and the overall group that it belongs to, right? So it has been a massive underperformer. So I will not be in this for long, and I will be looking to take my last target at that 180 VPOC, which I think will be where overhead supply is. Same thing with Intel, right? Am I going to ever get really long Intel for an investment? No, because same thing, and again, this is important because you want to be in my opinion, you want to be in the top stocks. You don't want to be in the underperformers. And this is Intel over its group, and that's massive underperformance. But it doesn't mean that it can't come up and bounce in a downtrend. And I think that's what's going on in Intel. And I had some calls on today, and I took them off in the first hour. I had some weekly calls on for 27 cents, and I took them off at around 80 cents today. I know that they did go a bit higher, and I think that this can rally to 34.54. So that's some of the underperformers in the group. Other names which, have been breaking out, come in a little bit. I mean, look at this AMSC. Now that did take a VPOC up out there, but super, super strong, right? Really nice setup, which we talked about I posted this chart on Twitter, and that's a heck of a move into this. And CAMT has been another name that's just been unbelievable, right, over the last few months. I mean, this was a stock that was at 70 or 80 bucks and is now at $135. Very, very strong. Other names that joined the party today: Marvell, which has been seeing some call activity. I think it saw calls either Thursday or Friday Thursday we were off, right? So either Wednesday, I think it was on Friday that it saw calls. Again, this is a pretty sideways looking chart, so I would be taking profits into some strength, but that's just me. You do whatever you want because I'm not giving advice or recommendations. Broadcom, which was weak on Friday, recovered quite nicely. Teradyne had a nice day as well, right? And you go through, we could go through another 10, 15 charts of the semis, but I do like this Applied Materials. I've been I got long Texas Instruments last week. This has been a very nice mover as well. Let's talk about a few other groups. Tesla. So Tesla, I took some more profits on Friday. Why did I do that? Because of this overhead supply. Now, ultimately, the top of value, this is the bullish 80% rule, and this is why this value area is, using volume at price here. This is why this is green, but ultimately, we might see a pause here, right? And also, when you look at the 1 hour chart, you could see, right, that we tagged this. So again, if you're still, think that there's more upside, you want to see Tesla get above 258, right? And again, I don't think that the move is done in Tesla, but I think it might be due for a little bit of a pause, right? And that's my take. Also, just looking at some of the other big names. Just bring this up. Whoops, sorry. take care of this. All right, so this is just a little trade, a little Excel sheet that I monitor like what the big names are doing, especially because they've been so strong over the last month. But you know, you can kind of see what happened here today, right? The only names that were up out of this group today, you know, again, I think it's just because they're due for a little digestion. But you know, NVIDIA, which we already went over, was up about 60 basis points over the trading session, up 1.9%. Tesla was strong from where it opened, and Apple did okay today too. You know, notice what Apple did, right? And this was a nice little support level for this to come down into, right into the top of its value area for the week. Right. So again, all this is automatic, right? And it should not be a surprise. I just wanted to talk about the Qs chart just for, well, I did this already, so that's fine. I'm going to move on. Sorry. DELL also had a pretty nice day today, right? You know, when the semis do well, then you do have, you know, some of these AI, you know, server companies and you know, data suppliers and so on and so forth. But DELL did break back above. It's been tracking above this 50-day moving average, right? And nice move here. Also a name that I got long, I think in the beginning of last week. It's kind of just been chugging along, also above that 50-day moving average, which is VST. Right. I don't think I've taken a profit target yet, but it's been doing okay. Here's our watch list for the week. You know, interesting that these restaurants have all of a sudden been very difficult. So we have been seeing some changes and, in my opinion, some deterioration. Right. So besides the big tech and the semis and so forth, you know, you ride that wave while it's going on, but there's a lot of breakdowns. Look at Chipotle breakdown, right? And then look at Kava today, right? Kava did not hold, you know, again, it's still grinding in the right direction, but it's kind of lost its momentum, right? So, you know, maybe it will hit $100, but the restaurant group has gotten difficult. The sneaker group has gotten difficult. A lot of retail has gotten difficult. But you know, obviously AMD, ENVX had a good day today too. Dutch Bros looks interesting. I was going to cover SMCI too. Right, here's Dutch Bros. I think this is heading towards this VPOC up here, up about 3.3% away. SMCI, we got a really good level to watch for tomorrow. That's the top of the July value area. So I added this to the watch list today just to see if it can do something more than, you know, it's been showing these like these episodes of really good strength, and then it just doesn't hold it and kind of gives it back, right? Over again, this is going back since May, basically. Strength gives it back. Strength, you know, all of a sudden it just drips out of it. Strength can't get above the previous highs and falls down a bit. Strength again, is it going to be you know, kind of get out of this this pattern of you know, of a little bit of a messier trend. Right, it does show really good days, but it's just not able to really kind of tack on a lot of consistency. ARM, on the other hand, made another new high today. I'm not in this one. I feel like I should be, but really strong. And again, you know, the consolidation into the 20-day moving average was bought, and up and away it goes. One other trade, so Palantir, I know a lot of people are talking about this one. I'm not in this one either. I just think that there's too many retail traders that are jumping up and down in this one, and I don't have to be in every name, but it has acted really well. I was going to go over, there's a big trade in XME, which I find as a very interesting ETF. So XME, which is the metals and mining ETF, was a pretty big call spread that went up today. This is the December 65.75 call spread that looks like it was bought. This went up for 35,000 contracts, right? So the total premium, when you add up the buying of the 65, selling of the 75 strike, it was about an $8 million trade. So very interesting, because when you look at the components of the metals and mining, right? And here's, by the way, this is $70. So, you know, you have to ask yourself, this VPOC up here, do you think price can get up there by December? So, you know, what could kind of cause this move, right? And if we look at the components of XME, right, you're going to see that it's things like, you know, you've got some metals that are very economic sensitive, like an Alcoa, right? Like an FCX, Cliff Resources in there too, STLD, right? So you've got some steel, you've got some, aluminum and copper miners. Then you also have gold miners in here too, Newmont, Royal Gold, right? Which are a little bit more, defensive type areas. And then you also have cold names in here too. AMR is also in here. BTU is in here. CENX is it, which I forget if that's aluminum or, but ATI is in here, right? So very interesting ETF, and it's equally weighted. Your biggest name right now is Alcoa, but interesting the positioning in that. And I kind of like the trade. I did not put it on, but something to kind of think about if the Fed does adopt more of an easing policy. Guys, I will leave it there. Have a great night. And, make sure you kind of think about this week too in the events. I am actually rooting for a little bit of a down move, right? And this is what I wanted to show with the Qs, right? Because I do think that that the Qs are going to continue to rally into the earnings reports, but the value area for the week, right, it's about 1.3% down. So we get some volatility, right? I think buyers might show up there, right? And that's just like what I was saying with Apple, right? Apple moves back to the top of value and buyers show up. So that's a little bit of what I'm thinking with because you've got Powell testifying in front of Congress for 2 days, starting tomorrow, and then you've got the CPI and the PPI later in the week, and you've got 3 bond auctions as well this week. Have a great rest of your night. You could still access, I think it's still on, I don't think we turned it off, our end of year special. I've been tweeting that out, but it's a really good buy. It gets you the bundle of having the MarketWebs via TradingView, as well as access to 6 months of our trading room for only $499. So it's a great buy in my opinion. Check it out. Have a great night.